as a matter of interest, the first night when it had been gazetted that we have football on the estate, I was the only adult other than the committee at that particular meeting. I had to trip over push bikes and so on a chap's front lawn round the corner here to get into the place, and yeah, we decided then that we'd have football.
When I first arrived, I didn't know anything about the footy club when I first arrived, and I was driving home from work one night and I see players out on the ground training. I thought, oh, this is good. It's only a few streets away from my place. So I stopped and came in, and I thought the chap in the centre was the coach, but it wasn't. It was Jack Verity, big tall bloke in the centre, you know. And so then I signed up almost straight away, and about, I don't know whether it was the second game or the third game in 1964 season, they said, you're playing today. I went down to Dramana, who we were playing, and I hadn't trained because I just found out about the club. And of course I got cramp and that, you know, but it was all right, it was good. And that was my first start in the Pines Footy Club.
We used to get a lot of ridicule in the early days about the ground being a rubbish tip. Is that the
A swamp?
It was a swamp.
A swamp that brings to memory then that Kevin Tuck and I went and collected a copper and a bath, because our only change rooms in the first start of it was the old, what we use now as an outside bar, was a gardener's shed down the back end near the goal behind posts.
All we had was a gardener's shed down the end of the ground.
That little green shed?
Yeah, and the visitors used to get that to try to change in. We had a tent. I think Vern used to bring his tent over.
With Vern Trotter.
And we used to use that for changing on game days. Yeah.
And the borrowed tent that we changed in, we let the opposition change in the actual the gardener's shed, because it had a floor and everything to it. We used then my tent, or our tent, over on the wing where the scoreboard is, to boil the water for the hot dogs and cups of tea and so on. That I used to take my tent home and dry it out in the lounge room. But any players that we couldn't take home to have a shower because of the mud heap that it was, they had a bath down the back end there that we'd stoke the fire up under the copper and make sure they had some water there to have at least a wash in. So yeah, the sheds lasted.
The people, the supporters and that used to take players, opposition players, because it was a terribly muddy ground, home to their homes for showering and that sort of thing. Yeah. And that caused a great camaraderie with the other clubs.
Yes.
Yeah, and we just had a barrel in the tent. You didn't approve, but
just to wash the mud off your face.
Yeah.
Face and hands.
Yeah.
Well, we used to be virtually the laughing stock. Brings to mind, in about our second year, we're at Somerville, excuse me, emotion. At 3/4 time, Pines was in front. And the people from Somerville were saying, come on, they're only the Pines. Of which an old stalwart, Jack Verity, picked up on that, and that went in our next newsletter.
Yeah, everyone stuck together no matter what. And probably it stood out in the field. If you challenged one Pines bloke, you challenged 18, and the other clubs couldn't come to grips with that. Mind you, those 18, about 15 of them were probably pretty, you know, you had blokes like Martin Simic, who'd want to challenge him, for God's sake. It's
We made some bad headlines, or they gave us some bad headlines, nominating Pines the troublemakers, But it wasn't that way in the first place at all. The other mobs the other clubs used to start it, and then we'd finish it.
It's always been a trait, even when we tried to recruit players. Whether you like it or not, it's a housing commission area, and as soon as you mention that to a lot of people, for some unknown reason it turns them off. And yet, once they get here, the best people you'll meet in your life. At least you know where you stand, you know.
It was the first one where Berkey ran through the, during the week, Berkey, would have been 76, Berkey was out working and he walked past his car and the trim on his car went through into his thigh. And there was talk that he wasn't going to play. And I remember half time and him standing up talking and the blood was dripping onto his boot. Just standing there talking and like everybody was bloody howling, I reckon. And I think Martin got up and ran through the bloody door. Ran through the door out into the ground. That was it. It was all over. Yeah. Well, it's 76. All the blokes that ran out there would have died for Berkey.
See,
fantastic.
No one was getting paid.
They all put into to help raise money. In those days, nobody got paid for playing. They all played for the club and for the colours, and they all pulled together to raise money towards a club room.
The big blue at Rosebud made the front page of the Sun.
Oh, yeah, right,
Yeah, on that was the reserve grand final, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Reserves grand final, yeah.
Maury had a mate there.
Yeah, there must have been 400.
He said, let me out.
400 on the ground fighting, I reckon. 400 there.
Yeah, they started it.
Mate, of course they did. Oh, I think they hit Freddie over there.
They hit Freddie.
Rye, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Rye were in the Nepean League at that stage, and they'd won the first 18 flag on the Saturday. They rocked up with a ute or two with some barrels in the back, and they had a fairly big contingent of supporters. And they were evidently going up to the back, having a drink, coming down, and then, Ronnie Adams, of whom was the coach of there, we were that far in front at three-quarter time, or just after three-quarter time. He turned around to Freddie and said, well, you can come off now. And Freddie went to come off the ground, and as he walked around the perimeter, their supporters spat on him and reached over and grabbed him and tried to thump him, of which then another one of our best clubmen, Peter McDonald, happened to fix up a few of them.
Then a couple of them jumped the fence, yeah.
That was it.
No, it's open slather. Yeah. Two of them jumped the fence, which means 200 of us could go out.
I remember Paulie Clark running across in front of me screaming. He's just at the top of his voice.
And we didn't start it. So that, they just had to respect us from there. I suppose it might not be printable, but Barry Moore's brother-in-law, Jimmy Cody, happened to get up on our stools that were around the rooms at that stage. We were having a Maori hungy up at his place at Knox, and Jimmy gets up, and we'd brought the girls in because the way the change rooms were then, we had our social in there, etc. And after the boys had changed, so the girls could come in, so as we could try and have an ale together. Jimmy gets up on the stool and he happens to say, well, I need 300 good effing bricks to heat up to cook the hungy. So, that was...
and the funny part about that was it actually belted down with rain overnight, and we got up to his place at Knox and he said, we've had a hell of a trouble trying to start this fire with the wet ground. Anyway, finally they uncovered it, all the leaves and stuff they took off it and got this food out, and everybody was tasting it. They started it with kerosene and everything tasted of kerosene. It was really...
It was.
Trout. We had a bloke from Tasmania, and his name was Trout. He come the first night of training.
Blizzard was his last name.
Blizzard. Yeah. And he came down, and when no one knew him, coming with a Gladstone bag, and he opened it. That's all right, and he got his footy gear out, and he's getting changed, and he out of his bag took this jock strap. bloody dirty. It was a dirty. It was a dirty.
You wouldn't put it on your cap.
He hung it up on the hook, and while he's getting ready, and we laugh. All the players were around, and he was a good bloke, but he was a real Tasmania.
Yeah.
Outback country bloke, But
Thought hygiene was a tall girl.
that's right. Yeah, but you can go on.
Gil Ross knew a bloke named Bongo from the Vines Hotel, and Bongo was hell-bent on playing football. So he went and bought himself a heap of, I think it was Essendon gear, brand new boots, socks, shorts, the whole lot. And he's come to train and his breath would have knocked anyone out. He was blind. And Berkey's jerried to it and it was just outside here, and he said, right, I get in a line behind Bongo, and he said, Bongo, I want you to come out, scoop up the ball, pick it up, scoop it up, and pass it to the bloke down the other end. By the time Bongo went out, scooped it up, did the blind turn, he was staggering around over near the scoreboards. But for some reason, just about every lunatic in Frankston come through the doors here. Like, who could ever forget Billy Diggle streaking in the 74, I think it was 74 finals. Billy had a lot of trouble keeping his clothes on, and he's streaking across the ground with Millie Moore to follow him holding his clothes. And there was a lot of complaints from the back of the grandstand, they couldn't quite see enough. But
But there was JL's another one. Like, you never knew what he was going to do, and as we were talking before, he never bought a packet of cigarettes in his life, when he did, he'd leave them in the car, as Barry said before, and he'd always on the bot.
You always say there's plenty of blokes in there that got cigarettes.
Yeah, but there was.
I'll just tell you a little story too. When you was talking about JL before too, did you know how we recruited John and Legsy?
No.
All right, we were having a pie night here one time in the old rooms, and they were only 17 or something, or 16, 17, maybe 15. But they were sitting out on the steps, and they were playing at Seaford. And someone said to them, what are you doing? They said, we just want to know if we can have a pie and a can of Coke. We said, well, you can have a pie and a can of Coke if you sign a clearance and play with us, and they did. And could have been a mistake, but they were great for the club for years and years and years.
Berkey, of course. Berkey was one of those footballers who'd shove the ball under your nose and then you'd be grabbing mid-air, and he just aggravated the hell out of the opposition. But he was such a great leader. Like, I remember we played a practice game against Carrum in one of Berkey's early days, and they had a bloke, one of his sons or nephews played at Melbourne. Can't remember his name. It'll come to me. And Berkey's just gone up behind him and started belting him over the head. He said, what do you think you're doing? He said, don't go touching any of my kids, I'll kill you, you bastard. Hopgood. Hopgood was his name, yeah. You touch any of my blokes, I'll kill you. Berkey was so intense. He'd have us half an hour before the game. He said, no, I don't want any arguing with the umpire. It's sick of this. 5 minutes into the game, you'd be dragging him off them. He's trying to kill the bloody umpire. But a great player.
JL, and I don't know what year he won the best and fairest.
That would have been about 76, yeah.
Well, all right, well, what happened, he used to go to the pub anyhow of a Saturday morning and have a couple of beers. I knew that, players knew that. And I said, right, JL, to the players, I don't want any of us going to the pub of a Saturday morning. The only player that can go to the pub of a Saturday morning is JL, right? And I don't care if you, the rest of you are caught, you're not playing. But JL can play. He won the best and fairest that year.
Yeah, he's the only half-back flanker that never ever picked up a man. He used to say, that was his saying, I'm not worried about him, he can get his own kicks, I'm worried about my kicks.
That's JL.
Had a bloke here one day, Ted Warne from Corryong, I think he come, big fella, ruckman, and we were always short of ruckman. And Maury and Berkey were saying to him, it's a great club this, we're really going places, blah, blah, blah. Next minute, Legs, he's come out and he's got a cigarette in his mouth with ash about 2 inches long, and he's got a pot in his hand. He goes over to the bloke, he coughs all over him, spills grog all over him. He said, "What's your name, son?" He said, "Ted Warren." He said, "Alan Lillico, fitness advice." Then about 5 minutes after that, Billy Nichols roared out of the dunny, stark bollock naked, doing a dance on top of the bloody the pool table, yeah. But there were so many funny things. It was just, yeah.
New club from 64 through to probably late 60s to early 70s were pretty tough times for the club on the field. We didn't have a lot of success.
No, we got thumped quite a few times, you know.
But the biggest move we made was, and we were forced to do it, but we were going to anyway, was the youngsters.
Yep.
We had, before there was the junior football club, we were running under age teams then, you know,
Under
12,
14.
under 14,
14s, yeah.
under 12. And with those kids come right through up into the first, a lot of them were bloody good footballers.
When we were coming through, and yourself and that, you had to get a house here, you had to have 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I lived in Mulberry Crescent, and I think there was 63 kids in Mulberry Crescent. You know, like, and I mean, you know, like, and there was the same in just about every street. Every house had 3 kids and, you know, heaps of kids there was.
I think I moved into Pines when I was 1 or so, or 2 in Mulberry Crescent, and we went to the footy every Saturday, no matter what. And the junior footy was obviously on a Sunday, and that was down at Mulberry. Later on, that was down the end of the road, so we'd go down there on a Sunday and training every Monday and Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursday at the footy club. We'd come to the footy club on a Thursday night for meals. And that, yeah, they were great memories, and it happened from, you know, like from as early as I can remember, probably 4 or 5 till, you know, like 19, 20 really, and then come back playing here. So yeah, it was great memories, yeah.
And like in those days too, we had 2 under 10s, 2 under 12s. You know, we had kids running out of our ears, you know, and this is where it all started naturally from the juniors, you know, and they were dying to come down here and play under 17s. And
I think in under 9s we had like, I think we had 50 something under 9s down there, and it was like absolute mayhem. Could you imagine how revved up the kids would have been in under 9s and him trying to control everyone, kids running everywhere, football's going everywhere. But then like the amount of kids that we had back then from the estate, and they were all from the estate. It wasn't if we had anyone from any other place, like Seaford, Carrum Downs wasn't even around then, so everyone lived in the estate.
they were all mates. This is the thing, you know, like there's at least, without even thinking about it, a half a dozen players should have gone on and played league football from junior football. But they just were mates. They didn't want to go up, leave their mates. They'd like a game of football, few beers, or a lot of beers, Saturday nights, Sunday mornings, and they were mates. They had a ball here, you know.
Who were the toughest teams, you think, in your era playing against? Who are our real...
Crib Point.
I would have hated to play against us. Would have hated to play against us, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
They, Crib when Millsy was talking about they beat us, they had 5 Seaford blokes, Alderson,
1 year.
Kangaroo O'Neill, Peter Williams,
Pavetta.
all in the team, and they were big, strong. You know, we were only a pack. Fortunately, we could run, probably out of sheer fear, but it did work for us.
And the hard games against Crib Point is also epitomised in the fact that Crib Point was the very last team that we could not beat. It took us nearly 10 years to beat Crib Point in a senior game.
Pearsdale were always hard.
Yeah.
Always hard.
Idiot at full back.
Oh, geez, they had a few. A bloke named Ivan Check.
That's him.
Yeah,
Full back he was.
He was
and that bloke from Rosebud, the kids hated playing on, that Fisher. That fishing guy,
Oh,
yeah,
Clem,
flag, yeah.
Clem Fisher, yeah. He was always worth 3 goals to us, though, because he had a
free kick.
bad temper.
Yeah.
But,
But so we started then in 72 and well, I think we finished 5th that first year, Baz. I think well, we had a good year anyhow because they're only kids, you know. And then in 73, I think we went through undefeated except for the finals. But there was excuses that we had still had kids playing and well, we come up against Navy and I mean they were all 6'2" bloody phys ed people from all over Australia.
Like early when Berkey first got here, probably 73, probably went through undefeated and didn't win a final, and then 74, 75, both really good sides, and I suppose all the young kids just coming in earlier on, like the under-17s coming up, they all know who they are, but that was the difference in 76. They were just good footballers. If they weren't there, like we wouldn't have won anything, but they were just good, tough footballers and young kids. But 76 was just so long coming and fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing was too that when I took over, these boys were 17, 18, 19, 20 and a few older naturally, but like 13 years later or 15 years later, they're still, you know, they were still playing, a lot of them, you know, so we had good players, you know, and because we recruited a few boys from around Frankston, Martin, Simic and all that, the Tedgy that other sides wouldn't go near, you know, because their reputations, and so that helped a bit, because we had, and Turk, Darryl Saunders, and so these boys were goers, and any side that played us knew they were in for a hard day no matter where we were on the ladder.
Yeah, the kids were too young then. They were coming up at 17 and playing against, you know, tough guys. Like, like bloody Navy rigged their side every week. They played us. But as they matured more, so 76, 78 happened. And then, well, even the reserves were very strong earlier on, and that's through those kids as well. Yeah.
It's, from halfway through 1980, right through until halfway through 1984, we only ever lost 2 senior games. Unfortunately, they were grand finals. When we learnt hard out of that one, and we went on, and that was the 1981 grand final against Somerville, and the 1982 grand final against Bond Beach. We'd beaten Bond Beach in 1980, and we beat Crib Point, as I said, in 1983. But they were what we reflect back on now, our great years.
I think the thing that would define Pines the most, though, is I don't think it was ever about an individual player that would make them. I think it was more about the team and the spirit, and it's probably been said before, is that the spirit and so forth, and that was the whole fabric, I think, of the Pines Footy Club and the teams that I've played in, the successful teams, and even the teams that battle. Like, I've played in sides that got thumped week in, week out at Pines, but it was still, you know, like, it was always about just giving what you had, and you couldn't do much about it after that.
At one stage there, I think we went 20 years in a row with a reserve side in the final. So, and our firsts were always there, weren't we, Baz?
They were all up there, yeah.
And we didn't win a lot, but I think success comes from being competitive every year, and I think that's what we were.
We were certainly competitive with the boys we had. I mean, they were real goers.
And played in the grand final, and we had Regan Stubbs sent off in the first 5 or 10 minutes, and Timmy McDonald sent off in the first 5 or 10 minutes. So we had our fullback and full forward sent off. Our bookends were off, and thanks to Neil McKinnon. And then we, and I think I looked up about halfway through the second quarter, and we might have been about 75 points down. And then halfway through the third quarter, I thought to myself, this is going to be a record loss. There's nothing we could do. Edithvale Aspinall were all over us, and then I think it was JJ, might have been JJ, I'm not too sure, did a streak. Thought he'd do a streak, ran across the ground, And I don't know if it fired us up or anything like that, but we ended up getting to within, 20-something points in the last quarter. We're never ever going to win, but the interesting thing about that is that after the game, we were all shattered, obviously, and Paddy Swain, who was assistant coach at that stage, said to me, you know what? The funny thing about this, in 10 or 20 years' time, when this mob have a reunion, they'll be wearing name tags because they will be gone. No one will know anyone in that. And I thought, it doesn't matter, though, Paddy, we lost and so forth. And last year, in 2012, Troy Shannon rang me up and said, look, we've got a reunion on for the premiership when we beat you. Would any of your boys, do you want to ring up and see if any of your boys want to come down and just have a beer or something? And I said, well, a few of them will probably be going to watch the game anyway. And so we got down there early. I think there was about half a dozen of us or so. We went in there and there was more of us, more Pines players, and they won the first and seconds. There was more Pines players in the rooms until I would say maybe halfway through the last quarter of that game, or even towards the end of the quarter. And things like that are, are important. Like we've seen here, the reunion we had here last year for the 83 era. No other club could probably do that. No other club could do that. And I think that's the fabric of the Pines Footy Club.
Yes, it is another side of playing in the game, being in the club, being involved. I feel that I'm still out. I feel that even though I come along each week, and as I sit down on Sunday mornings and I do my club notes for the footy record every week, and at the end of the year tally up all the statistics and all that sort of thing, I feel that I'm still wearing a jumper. I feel that I'm still out there with the boys, and that's the great part of it. I can still feel I can feel the rosin on my hands now.
Like and as we grow up and get a bit older, your lives sort of drift apart. But every past Players' Day or every time you meet up with the blokes you played with, grew up with, and so forth, nothing changes. Like I can guarantee, round one this year, past Players' Day, or I'll get together with the same blokes you get together with, and you'll talk about the same stories you talked about last time, and they'll be funnier, and they'll be a little bit more involved in them, and then the same thing will happen round 18 next year, and the same thing will happen round one the following year. We'll talk about the exact same stories, and nothing, they'll just be better stories.
If there was one word to describe your time and memories of the football club, Juniper, what's the one word you would use?
Pride.
Pride, yeah.
Yeah, loyalty is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, loyalty.
I think that's because of the kids that
Yeah, but
they come right through. Well, you would have been amongst that.
yeah, because we kept so many of the younger players when they came from 14s to 17s to second 18 and then the seniors, and that was only loyalty. They stuck with us, and we had very few imports in our teams in the early days because we had all the juniors coming up.
I don't know if there could be one defining word, Mark. I don't know. Like I now play at a different cricket club, right? And the blokes who play there I know of Pines, and they play Super Rules and they play here, and they're infatuated by the place. The stories they hear about them, and a lot of them aren't true, like in how it is now and so forth, and they're rapt when they come here. They come and watch games of footy here just to come here, and that's. So I don't know if there is one word that I could say that would define the club, but we spoke off there about the loyalty and just the passion. And I don't know, everyone moves on, but I still think that the old saying that you can take the boy out of the Pines, but you can't take the Pines out of the boy. I don't think that ever does change. I don't think it does. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I play down Richmond. I coach Clayton, Sandringham, Pines, and all those clubs were absolutely terrific. But, this one, Pines, none better. None better. I had the greatest 6-7 years coaching down here that you could imagine, and that's it, one word, absolutely tremendous. There's three.
Probably the greatest time, apart from your family, the greatest time of your life. Sensational. Great place. Only got to talk to my wife about that, you know. I love the place. So.
Fantastic for me, yeah. Yeah, really good. Yeah, miss that sort of stuff. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. That was one word, wasn't it? No, there's a bit more, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a few more,
Yeah,
Mills.
go on.
What school did you go to?
Go on, give them one, shut up.
One word. I suppose one word that stands out to me, not more so that the people here, was loyalty, more than anything. That was, and it's still staunch. Yourself, other people have been here. They're still coming back. Yeah, Jack's overseas and all that still comes back. It's that word stands out more than anything to me. Yeah, the loyalty and the dedication of the place. Yeah, it's magnificent.
Very good question, Mark, and you have asked this of the other chaps here tonight. But if I was to say one word, I would say involvement. Being involved. It is so pleasing and so proud to be a Pines person when you go somewhere. I heard a similar thing mentioned before, and to be able to say you're from Pines. And whatever they think about you or whatever they think about Pines, it's bad luck, mate, because I'm from Pines and I'm proud of it, and you're not going to change it.